Welcome to this episode, Prophecy for the Last Hour. My name is McGee, and I have a whole teaching, again, prepared, so I hope it'll bless you. I've been sort of explaining or sharing how Paul is a very deep thinker, writer, prophet, apostle. I use the word Kabbalistic, I use the word mystical. Now, I'm coming totally to the conclusion because I read very broadly the sacred, ancient, primary texts of our faith tradition, okay? Everything that's coming back to us. And I'm coming to the conclusion that no matter kind of what genre the information is coming through, whether it just be an apocryphal text, Old or New Testament, whether it be through the Zohar, which is designated mystical teachings, of the Torah, or it's coming through, what was the other? I had three, or Apocrypha, or the oral Torah, okay, which is another whole, like, understanding, all right? So as I come into these understandings, piecing together understanding from all the writings, the Zohar, let's say the Dead Sea Scrolls and an apocryphal text, they really are saying the same information. What I'm understanding now is that the writer, be it the prophet, the seer, the priest, the sage, they all have the same understanding. They all have and I don't want to say worldview because that actually is too small. They have a cosmic view. They are all looking at, interacting, their perspective and what they're delivering, what they're seeing, what they're hearing, in a very specific way. And so this is what I'm going to try to kind of disseminate what I think that they're saying, because the disadvantage of the saints of the last days is we live under a matrix, so the truth has really been stolen from us. To a huge extent, what we think is true, really and truly, is a repackaged, watered down, profaned truth, because, there has to be some truth to a lie. You never believe a total lie, let's hope. Okay, so the point is, all right, enough of that. So you have the oral Torah, the apocryphal writings, the mystical writings, the esoteric, talk a lot about the esoteric writings, the soul level, the deeper level. Okay, so anyways, I have three books. I want to read something from Clementine, the Clementine homilies, the book of Enoch, which would definitely be apocryphal, which is a text that has really come back into as part of the revelation the Ruach's bringing now, which hasn't been around for almost like 1800 years. So that's a huge. Then you have a book of Jubilees, also another writing that was really not that familiar on the radar, especially within Christian commentary, biblical commentaries, but with the Dead Sea Scrolls and a lot of other archaeological finds, the one in Egypt, which quote unquote a garbage dump, they're finding these texts and they're realizing their centricity, that they really are central and authentic information transmission carriers. I guess the Jews had an understanding of how to classify writings. It didn't freak them out. The different writings actually kind of, like the mystical texts were it just classified it as that, okay? The writings are larger than life, and they're done that deliberately on two levels. One, because it's really true. What's really going on is way larger than our quote-unquote life here in what we perceive in the world of Asiya, the world of physicality. So on that level, they're totally true. And it helps to, like scare people away. People can't handle it, all right? You have to be able to think and maintain a certain amount of equilibrium, even though your knowledge stream is increasing. I hope that's all right, I won't even go into that, but that's a piece of the puzzle. So what we have here, and then I think my third writing was, I have two from Enoch and one from Jubilees. And to prove that a lot of the language they're using, now that I understand it, is keys, and what they're seeing, what they're picturing, is they're transmitting information, and it's all based on the tree of life. I've said this, and I actually have a playlist that I haven't quite released yet that really goes into a lot of detail on the tree of life, all right? But either way, that is the foundational concept that they are all working from. All right. And what is so interesting is that if you factor in the fact that at the end of the age, given all the prophecies, there's going to be a lot of darkness, a lot of blindness, a lot of quote unquote misery on the earth at the time of the coming of the final Mashiach. All right. This is pretty readily apparent. And that there will be a time of darkness, and that people's minds will be very far from the truth. And at the same time, there will be a group of people on the planet whose minds are filled with light and truth. That's what Daniel says. Their persona, their aura, their consciousness, this is on so many levels, is shining with the glory, the presence of Shekinah in them, really with truth and light. I mean, there is such a real physics to this language and to what the prophets are portraying. And as I keep saying, my concern is that much of, let's just call it the two houses, evangelical Christianity, messianic Christianity, or a how do I say, Hebrew roots, people, as long as they're antagonistic towards the mystical writings, or the oral Torah, or the Talmud, or the Zohar, you're never going to get the big enough picture to be a real workman of the word, where everything you build is accurate and in its proper place. All right, because it's a house, it is one unit. So that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it, but at least I have done the reading of the text across the board, years meditating with Shekinah, who leads us in, like, show me what is here. So enough of all that. Now, this is my verse from the Clementine Homilies, chapter 6, verse 20. This is Peter, Petros, talking. Then those who choose to make dishonorable allegories of divine things. Now, right away, we are talking allegories, so we know we are talking about esoteric, hidden, this is the point, apocryphal, deeper levels of understanding. So that's just the given in that. So those who choose to make dishonorable allegories, so that'll tell you too, some allegories can paint a true picture, a bright picture, an honorable picture, and some can paint dishonorable pictures. And the picture, mentally how we perceive, because an allegory is nothing more than using language to help us picture in our brains what's being talked about, another reality, all right? So, now, as for instance, it says that Metis was devoured by Zeus. Now, again, a lot of people, you have a problem reading the mythological, all the gods and goddesses of the Greeks and the Romans and the pagans, and like what they're doing and the whole thing. It's very foreign to us on one level because we have not been taught to properly understand the information that's being transferred. We've never really known, is it literal? Is it totally allegorical, or is it something in between? Okay, so there's all these allegories, mythologies among the Greeks, and he just picked that one out. Now, have fallen into a dilemma. Okay, so he's saying there's a trap. Remember, Yahweh always lays a trap for the unrighteous. They get caught in their own web of deceit. This is what he's saying. Now they've fallen into a dilemma, because they do not see that they, meaning these dishonorable, those, the unbelievers who really just want to make fun of the word or try to, muddy the water so people can't drink from it purely. Anyways, So let me just get to it. So because they did not see that they, who in these stories about the gods, which is the way they always use small god, little g, the Hebrew word Elohim. It's all over the text. I mean, it's a very established category of living being, made called gods with a little g. Okay. Indirectly taught physics. And this is my whole point. Because this is why the seers could say with confidence that at the end of the age, the Zohar, the deeper level of mystical understanding, is going to absolutely be confirmed by physics. All right? That's the testimony. And now I completely understand it. And it will give Elohim great glory. And for those who can make the jump in your mind, that the physics in all the dimensions is Torah, is rather divine. It does not change. And everyone is subject to it. And that there is a level, it's a coin with two sides. You can look at it according to the laws of physics, as long as you understand to keep the Bible in the equation, top dog, revealer of revelation. The Bible said it first. It just uses a language that we had lost. Hope that all made sense. Okay. All right. So what is taught is mythology is actually indirectly teaching physics. Now, Philo, who was a great first century philosopher, Greek, Jewish, this is the point, just because he was Greek, and I'm not going to go, Jewish, Torah, sage, scholar, prophet. I mean, he was a pretty heavy hitter in the first century, whose words could have been preserved for us. He has a lot of information that's absolutely accurate if people would take the time to read it, on the creation and how it relates to physics and how it really, a rose is still a rose, if you could just kind of figure out what the two are saying. All right. And they're really saying the same thing. Okay. So all right, that they denied, by denying the very existence of gods, revolving all kinds of gods, moving all kinds of concepts that the ancients would have called gods into mere allegorical representations of the various substances of the universe. So in other words, there is nothing new under the sun. That's what they're doing today in science. They're just taking ancient allegorical representations, which is actually true, okay, and they're only giving it a organic or a laws of the universe, as long as it's still in the world of Asiya, as long as we can taste it, touch it, feel it, put it on our microscope, whatever. They will not give any credence to the fact that behind, there is a man behind the curtain. It's actually called Zerabin, the seven mountains of the Lord. Oh my gosh, it's Ezekiel's chariot. Now, when I understand what they're all picturing and seeing and writing about in their own way, that's why I think the Jews, there's a saying they have an understanding that, everybody can invent Torah. Everybody, and it doesn't mean invent Torah. It means everyone has a way of expressing Torah. That's why there's so many different allegorical ways. It's bread, it's a house, it's a temple, oh my gosh. All right. It's physics. So I'm going through this and then I'll read it again, one whole flow. So hopefully. Now, this is Peter again. So what they've done is they've taken the laws of all the spiritual dimensions and they've thrown all of them out, except for the one that deals in the world of physicality where we live, which we can quote unquote verify. So that gives science all this credibility. And they have thrown everything else, all the other out of the bath, the baby out with the bathwater everywhere else. So it is more likely that these gods, these persons celebrate, were some sort of wicked magicians who were in reality wicked men, but by magic, assuming different shapes, committed adulteries, took away life, and thus to the men of old who did not understand magic, let's just say to the average guy, it looks larger than life, Okay, it seemed to be gods by the things they did. Okay, and this is, I read this in Philo. Peter doesn't make anything up here. It says, "In the bodies and tombs of these men are to be seen in many towns," and this is historically accurate. This is, if you follow the ancient historians who will testify to this. But okay, so we have really two things going on. In other words, there's nothing new under the sun. The propaganda war is the same. The enemy of Yahweh, who is our enemy, is trying to change the storyline and take all of the glory, take all of the acknowledgement and the worship and the actual everything away from Yahweh Elohim, and just make it something benign, something, the force, the universe that just came out of nowhere and is going back into nowhere, so to speak. Let's not. All right, so this is all, but the flip side is, all right, this lie is perpetuated very powerfully. This is the matrix we're in. This is the net that is cast over us. This is the huge disentanglement that needs to happen for the chosen elect son of daughter of Elohim. All right. This information these men have ensnared us by using quote unquote magic, which is, we now is really fallen angel technology, which is really information about how the heavens work and how they influence us, and so that you can kind of command them or cause them to work for yourself, and especially mostly for your own nefarious intentions, purposes of control, manipulation, or gathering for yourself wealth, power, whatever. Okay, so this is a truth. It's never changed, but we have to see this a lot more realistically, because at the end of the age, this category, these wicked are going to be removed, and we need to be part of the process of exposing them. All right, and we need to function, and this was what gets a little tricky with especially the fundamentalists, the literalists. How to do this? For power to encounter power. Most times in any kind of, I don't care if it's a boxing match or a football, one greater power overpowers the other power. So you can't just sit there and look at each other in this stuff. There's power encounters. Our power comes from a higher source. This is what the true Sadiq prophet sage, or, like Yeshua, had power, wielded power on levels that, to most people, it looks like magic. It makes them look like a god. I mean, that's because it is. But this is very real. It's historically accurate. You can trace it and document it. And this is where we're going. All right. So just, again, more and more, as this stuff is true. This stuff is we have to get back to, again, this is the part of the prophecy in Malachi where it says the hearts of the fathers will turn to the children will turn back to the father. We need to go back to our patriarchal Abraham, and that's a code word, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, our foundational roots, the ancient paths, the original understandings. Okay, we got to all bring it home again. And you're only going to be able to do that, absolutely, by getting out of the boat and into these texts, this world. Okay, woo! So, there are three things, and also I've been on, so let me just read this again to set my parameters here. In this Clementine 6:20. Then those who choose to make dishonorable allegories of divine things, as for instance, that Metis was devoured by Zeus, have fallen into a dilemma, because they did not see that they who in these stories about the gods, which is the forces, indirectly taught physics, denying the very existence of the gods, revolving all kinds of gods into mere allegorical representations of the various substances of the universe. And this is exactly where we are again today. It was happening in Peter's time. There's nothing new under the sun. You just got to stay cagey, be wise as a serpent. See how Satan in every generation is repackaging. And so it is more likely that the gods these persons celebrate were some sort of wicked magicians, which is really true, because I have to stop and give you the history of Nimrod. The history of, even Aleister Crowley. There are some of these people, they are the wicked magicians in Pharaoh's court. Balaam. I mean, it's all over the text, the quote unquote, these wicked magicians, the line of Cain, all right? This whole point. So these wicked magicians, who were in reality wicked men, but by magic assumed different shapes, committed adulteries, took away life, and thus to the men of old who did not understand magic seemed to be gods by the things they taught. And the bodies of these, okay, so this is Peter talking in Clementine homilies, all right? So there is nothing new under the sun. And I think, okay, the Simon Magus would be, and we could put him in there. Simon Magus is a wicked magician who came against Peter and Paul in a quest to try to stop or derail, whatever, cut off the power flow of the gospel, all right? So this is really physics, and this gets into Einstein's whole, you know, he said it too. You know, Einstein was a Jew, and there's indications that he had Kabbalistic, I don't know, friends, connections. He was not ignorant of this whole worldview, but his law of relativity really does explain in a very accurate Kabbalistic understanding the same thing, that the different dimensions in the physics of the different dimensions, there is explain the law of motion and how it does it. The speed of light is relative to no matter where you're going. Now I'd have to unpack that, but I see this thing Zoharistically because it says the light of life, which is what we're talking about, you know, speed of light. We're talking spiritual light. Yahweh is Yahweh. He doesn't change. Okay, so it's still the same speed. And I think speed actually is vibrational level. That's my opinion, a little more accurately. I don't think speed, it's vibrational level. He never changes. But what happens is he puts on, he wraps himself in garments, which is the biblical way of understanding, in light, in other dimensional. See, look at a dimensional. This is one of what they're talking about when they talk about different garments. All right, he's cloaking himself. He's putting something on himself, so that actually we can come more and more into contact with him. Because again, the raw essence of Elohim would just blow us all up out of the water. Atoms couldn't handle it. We couldn't stick together. You know, the vibration would just blow us out of the water. So he clothes himself in more and more. And this is the whole concept of the difference between the eminence of Elohim and the immanence. He does dwell with us, but the reason we don't see him. Okay, so anyways, that's a whole understanding out there. But Rachael Eller is another one that I have been listening to because of all the scholars are reading a lot of her papers. She, in my opinion, gets it. She gets the esoteric writing. She gets what the esoteric writers, which is, again, I just told you what that means in terms of the writings. She gets what they're saying. She really gets it, in my opinion, on a much deeper level. And as a woman, she gets it in a much more holistic understanding. And she has a lot of respect. I don't know about her personally, you know what, but she has a lot of respect for the tradition, this esoteric tradition, which I find very refreshing, very comforting. I mean, you know, here's somebody who respects the tradition, isn't dishing it. But she makes this point because, see, one of the things we have to understand, all right, I have so many places to go. Let's just see if I can. She had, this is the opening of one of her papers, all right, it says, for almost 1,000 years, there was a temple in Jerusalem that was meant to reflect, and actually, so this is the first and second temple over 1,000 years, all right. This was meant to represent a complex cosmic order. That's the first thing. I don't think we really dwell in, we spend enough time trying to understand what the mind picture, what the visual of the temple was showing us in the deeper Zoharic, esoteric tree of life allegorical language. Okay, so what it is doing, it's just representing a complex cosmic order on, number one, it's depicting the duration of time. Time is huge. And again, back to Einstein. Time is one of the dimensions. Absolutely. Okay. So we have time, cycles of life, the continuity of the cycles of life. This is the Moedim. This is the cycles through the zodiac. This is the whole concept of keeping track of time in a linear sense, so you can count, and you can count ahead, or you can go back, and you can also accumulate time, all right? And you can also use it. It is also understood as a cycle. So there's two levels of meaning here, literally always in time. It's a cycle that's repeated. It's a Gilgal. It's a wheel. This is what Ezekiel is saying. See, this is what they're in Zerampin. Time and the cycle are really depicting for us when they're using the Mazzaroth, the houses of the zodiac, the 4 seasons. This gets into the priestly cycle that they would flow through 24 priests over time, that they had 364 days in, I believe, in 30 lumps of 4 months and 3 days each. There are 4 months grouped in 30 days each, putting together all 12 would give you an exact number. Everything fit. See, I do personally believe that the calendar, the Essene calendar, the Jubilees calendar, the Enoch 364 solar calendar is about as accurate as you can get. But we've really kind of lost where we are on those cycles. We have best guesses. That's good. Best guesses are still better than nothing. But so you have time, which is a cycle, and it's also a linear progression of counting. Now you also have, and she says that you also, it's also a concept of the perpetual divine presence in creation. When you see that language, perpetual divine presence, you're talking about Shekinah. You are talking, and this is a foreign, unfortunately, this is one of the things that fell off the wheels, or that fell off the cart as we've gone through these 2,000 years. Even though they do not understand the female presence, personification, understanding of the tree of life, and of Shekinah, of Yod He, Vav He. The Father, the Mother, the Son, the Moshiach, the Son, and the daughter. Okay, so I can't go into all that, but what I do want to say is that is one of the huge, and Shekinah, and what is going on, the mind picture, and the spiritual reality of the marriage supper of the Lamb, when the world of Malkut, the Sefer of Malkut, that's in physicality, which is Shekinah, which is the assembly of all Israel, which are the souls. It's the body container on the earth for all those souls, all those programs, for all those people, you know, for the time of the resurrection. This is the role of Metatron. I mean, there's so of Enoch up there keeping track, so you can push all the right buttons, so to speak, so you can get your resurrection going. So this is the divine presence in creation, which, and this is the whole story, that was, the Shekinah presence was the dowry, was the promise, was the literal delivery, gift delivered from the Father to Israel, the 12 tribes, the Mount Sinai, when they entered into that covenant. Covenant represents the word Yesod, which is the next dimension up from Malkut, which represents, I mean, let me put it this way. Between earth and, quote unquote, when they mean to say the heavens in Command Central, Tiferet, the central hub of the 6 Sephirithic emanations are totally around the sun, Vav, is Yesod. Yesod is a very important concept to understand, that they understood the sign of the covenant anywhere from, on different levels of understanding, from the male phallus, okay, which is the stream, which is the original of human life, of soul life, comes from, I said, it comes from somewhere. It is being vivified from above, and it goes into the earth, the female, the womb, and on every level, this is absolutely true, all right, and how you can look at it correctly, that's fine. But it's Yesod is a very important important piece of this puzzle that unfortunately, okay, but this is what the temple is doing. It's everything about it, all its bells and whistles, sights, sound, smells, rituals, singing, dancing, sacrificing, everything is an absolute, unchanging, eternal enactment of spiritual realities. And it's causing a huge connection between heaven and earth, like a flow. Now, I have done this a lot of times on my shows. This is sort of my little thing, okay? But it has helped me, and I want to go through it one more time, because now that I understand the tree of life, and I understand what they're talking about, and even in the physics and how it totally fits, the underlying principles never change, and they're fabulous. But because quantum, this will help us with quantum physics. This, let's just call this the light of life, right? This is the core. See here, I'm sorry for that noise. This is the DNA. This is the building blocks. This is the earth. This is Adam Caveman. This is Yeshua. I don't know how to explain this. This is the light of life. This is the bit codes, the smallest group of bit codes that you can get, all right? And it is at the most quantum level. So when he says that the kingdom of heaven is within, I mean, it's literal. These little, look at them like quarks, what would it be? Electrons and all this kind of stuff in the, forget the correlations, but in the quantum world, their language really fits all this. You have this. This fits into so this is its whole dimension. This is Keter. This is really Keter, the very top, the point. This is the first consciousness of Yahweh Elohim in all of his creation. This is his first thought. This is singularity. I mean, there's so many ways. This never goes away. It's always there. But remember, like I said, it gets closed. As Yahweh comes down into manifestation of a creation, something he's making, all right? This never changes. It just gets put more and more into different dimensions that are below it. So that gets put into, so this really represents Chokmah, the father, Bina, Ima, the mother, Abba, Ima, and above the Keter, were like the connection point. This actually is what's going on in the Holy of Holies when I get there, if I can get there really quick. All right, so that goes into this dimension, all right, which is right below it, Hesed and Gevurah, okay? This one fits. This is why it fits like a hand in a glove. This is why there's some of their analogies. It goes into this dimension. Oh, look at this. That's playing with the colors here. This one, which is now we're down into Tiferet. So this is yellow. This is now we are at a level of souls, of actual sons now. We have come down into, we have sons. And that whole dimension, that's where the throne room of Elohim, this is where the throne room of the sun is, all right? This is where the highest point of because we're in three worlds. See what I want to say? I got 3 layers on now because there's 3 worlds that we can act with. The first world down there that I saw was what they call the world of Haya. It goes Yekuda, which, there's only 5 that we just can't, we don't come from there. We can't go there per se. Now, all right. Then you come down into the world of Haya, which is life, which I said, remember the light of life that was in here, okay? That world, then you go into this, the next world, and then we come into this world, which is the world, this is Zeran Pin. This is what they're saying. This is the biggest, in other words, and so it's all classifications, it's all how you put 3 together, you put 5 together, you're putting 10 together. This is why they're doing this. And so the reason there's 4 worlds, because there's 4 things to be put together. The reason there's 7 in many other senses is because when it's talking about the 7s, it's talking about this world, which now we have Zeran Pin going into this world. Now this whole dimension, this is our dimension physicality. And this you'll finally see. But see, inside it, okay, the kingdom of heaven, it's inside. It's not, you know, it's more powerful. It's so counterintuitive. You would think outside, you know, getting out there, that would be bigger. It's compacted, more and more power compacted. And covered and clothed. This is what they're saying, and this is in the Tree of Life. This is in the writings of the Oral Torah, the Zohar, the Talmud, the Bible. If we knew how to, this is what everybody is saying and seeing. Okay, it doesn't change. Yahweh does not change.